Hello. Welcome to Pyramid Knits, episode 10 or 11. I'm not sure. Today is Sunday, the 28th of June, 2020. You have found my YouTube channel, which is a knitting podcast, craftcast, where I share what I've been working on in the crafty realm. My name is Liz. I am a knitter, a natural dyer, and I am learning to spin and crochet. So I've got a little bit of everything to share with you today. My little kitten over here is trying to get into my coffee and my water. This is Conan. I've had him for about a month and a half now. I think in the last episode he was running around in the background. Things we have learned about Conan in the last month are that he loves stitch markers, especially the dangly ones. He loves to chew on buttons. He loves to knock pins down off the table and bat them all around the house. Kind of basic kitten stuff. He's very playful, very rambunctious, and very snuggly. And he's getting along great. He's friends with the dogs. They like snuggle together. It's adorable. Anyway. On the topic of this podcast, as I said, my name is Liz. You can find me on Ravelry as Bombardoo, and on Etsy as Pyramid Dye Works, and on Instagram as Pyramid Dye Works. I'll put all that stuff down here. I hope to see you in some of the other social media channels. So I've got my coffee here. I've got a glass of water. It's really hot outside. It's summertime here. I don't think I said I live just outside of Taos, New Mexico. I'm coming to you from my home. It's very much summer heat here this weekend. I've been doing a lot of work in the garden, which I'll show you some of that later, and it's officially the summer garden now. I've gotten most of my summer veggies out there. It's hot, but it's a dry heat because we're in the desert, and I grew up in Texas where it's not a dry heat. It's a humid heat, and it's much better here. I can guarantee you that. So what's been going on in the last month? Everybody? It's been more of the same around here. COVID isolation is really kind of getting to me. Just like, I'm an introvert. I'm a homebody. This is great. However, I do still require some outside socialization and just like chatting with people sometimes, which is why these podcasts are so great right now. Like, really so great. I watch a bunch of them, and it's just so nice to have other knitters to virtually chat with. And I hope that I do the same for you. So state of the world, the US is kind of reopening a lot. A lot of our businesses here are starting to reopen. We are sandwiched in between Texas and Arizona, which are the two biggest hotspots in the world right now. So that's great. I am in a very small, remote town in the mountains in a remote area of the country, which has worked to our advantage so far. But now that it's summertime, like I said, it's really hot and humid in Texas. So all of the Texans come here to escape because we're really kind of the closest mountains. I'm sorry, my kitten is trying to eat my sweater that I'm going to show you in a minute. Hey, don't do that. He's just like full on got fabric in his mouth. He's trying to drag it away. Like, killed it. Come here, come here. Very sweet little mischievous thing. He does not want to sit still right now. Anyway. So other things with the state of the world. I am in a very remote geographic area. In a town that's not that big. It's a 2.5 hour drive to the nearest city. which is Albuquerque. Santa Fe is about an hour and a half, but it's a pretty small city too. So as far as like any sort of like big mass protests or anything go, the closest one to me is 2.5 hour drive, through a canyon pass and all of that. That's not to say there hasn't been stuff happening here. There has been stuff happening here. There have been some local protests and demonstrations that were all very peaceful. Everything went totally smoothly. There were no issues here. And yeah, earlier this month, I guess, it was on Juneteenth. Hello. It was a Juneteenth block party they did here in town, which, there have been no events in months. There have been no live music in months. We do have a really big artist community here and a lot of really talented musicians that live here, even though it is such a small town. Oh my goodness, Kitty, no. Okay, so whenever I show you my sweater in a little bit, I'll have to show you all the little snag marks he just put on it. Yeah. Oh, Lord. Oh. Maybe he'll just sit there. Anyway, right, so there are a lot of musicians here in this town who are really talented. So there have been a lot of like stay-at-home music series of our local musicians, which has been really cool. And they have, virtual tip jars and you can watch them at home. And, I've watched a few of them and it's been nice. But this was the first thing with an audience. And they did it at this gallery close to downtown that has a really, really big front yard. Like really big front yard. And they had a little stage out there and they had the musicians playing and they had, some food being served. It was all free. Kind of light fare. Everybody was wearing a mask. Everybody was social distancing. I was kind of worried about it going down there, but I really wanted to go because it was benefiting Black Lives Matter and benefiting Black Trans Lives Matter, which are both very important things to support. And I wanted to support it, but I was kind of nervous about going to a social situation. But I was impressed with how well it was done and how everybody was being really respectful. The music was great. People were dancing far apart from each other. And they had some really cool art installations there because it is a gallery, and there was a really large representation of the people of color in our community there, which was great to see too. So I was glad I went. I didn't stay for a super long time because I was nervous about the social aspect and like people kept showing up. So I was like, okay, I gave you my donation. Like I got to see some music and now I'm going to go home. Go home and be safe in my little cave. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, that was a really fun thing to do and get out and just see people out and everybody being respectful and wearing masks and looking out for each other. And I mean, that's the whole point, right? We have to look out for each other, no matter the color of our skin, no matter our gender, no matter our age. We got to look out for each other. So I was really happy to be able to go to that and donate some money to that cause. Yeah, otherwise I've just kind of been at my house, hanging out with my animals, doing some crafting. So let's get into the crafting. I have some finished objects for you. Yay! The first one, I showed you this last time for sure. Goodness, I'm just like throwing stuff all over the place. I have finished my after party sweater. Oh, isn't it beautiful? Oh my goodness. Can you see the whole thing? There we go. I would be wearing it right now, but it's really hot. Oh, speaking of which, I should talk about what I'm wearing. It's not knitted, but I did make it. I sewed this dress. My God. I have only ever... Excuse me. This is the only garment I've ever sewed. Sort of. I've sewed this pattern twice, but it's the only garment I've ever made. So this was my first one. It is the tendril dress from A Verb for Keeping Warm. And I'll stand up so you can see it a little bit better. I am not a sewist by any stretch of the imagination. There, it's, you know, short linen, sleeveless dress. I don't know hardly anything about sewing. Like, it's not my forte. I want to learn more about it. So if anybody out there has any suggestions for like really beginner-friendly patterns, please let me know. This was a really beginner-friendly pattern. It's only 2 pattern pieces, the front and the back. But it's cut on the bias, so it fits really, really well without having to do a ton of shaping or anything. And it really does just kind of skim across your body. I am very busty, which is another reason I'm kind of nervous about sewing, because I know it's going to require full bust adjustments, which I have read about and tried to comprehend. But without a lot of experience sewing, it's a little bit daunting. I have to do that with a lot of knitting patterns, and I did that a lot more in the past. I would do short rows or something to accommodate some extra space in the bust on knitting patterns. And I definitely had some failures on that early on, where I didn't quite understand how ease was supposed to work, and I just kind of ended up with a bag, like a shaped bag. Not the greatest thing. However, I've gained a lot of weight since then, so now that sweater fits me. Anyway, point being, I'm a little bit nervous about doing that in sewing. So this was a great pattern because since it's cut on the bias, there's a lot more stretch to the fabric, so it's a lot more forgiving. And I really love that the neckline is higher, but it's not like a crew neck, you know? It's super comfy. It's a linen fabric, so it's super lightweight. It's great for summer. You know, I just like live in these 2 dresses in the summertime, it feels like. So I have this one in the gray, and I also made one in like a burnt orange kind of color. Yeah, so that's what I'm wearing. And yeah, if you guys have any suggestions for good beginner garment patterns, tops, dresses, skirts, like I want to try something. I want to improve my sewing skills. Because right now, I'm sewing some masks. That's a square. And they're still kind of messy. So. Oh, the other cool thing about this pattern is that they have you do French seams. So all of it's very nicely finished. It looks very professional. And that was a really nice skill to learn on a really simple project. So I would recommend it. I would recommend it. I would really love to sew another one. I wish it was just a little bit longer, which is probably a really easy modification to make. I just didn't do it both of the other times that I made this dress. And really, I just want it to be a little bit longer because I'm self-conscious about my legs. So, you know, it's the perfect length of a dress. It just makes me a little bit self-conscious. I feel like it's a little bit short. So that's what I'm wearing. So back to my after party sweater. Here we go. Okay, so this is a beautiful yoke design that was in Lane issue 6. It's patterned by Astrid Troland. And it's got this nice little color work down at the bottom and on the bottom of the sleeves. And it's really, I really, really love it. It's simple, but it's very visually striking. It's quite geometric. I really enjoyed doing all of the sort of checkerboard. I thought that was really fun to knit up. And I am super, super happy with how this turned out. I knit it out of my own yarn. The main body is my half pipe base, which is a 2-ply non-superwash fingering yarn. It's really good for color work, which is why I did this. And it is in the colorway Poodle Skirt, which is this lovely light pink, which it comes out kind of washed out on the camera. I always notice this when I take pictures of this sweater, on the camera, the color always looks a bit lighter than in real life. It's a bit more pink than that. And the contrasting color is just a one-of-a-kind color that I did on some test skeins, and I had test skeins lying around, so I used those. And I had talked last time about maybe not having enough in my contrasting color because it was just kind of like random test skeins I had. I had 40 grams of this, and it was in a tweed base, which you really can't even see the tweed nips. I mean, a few, there's one you can see, there's one you can see, you know, there's one. And it turned out I did not have enough. I did not have enough in the tweed base to do the whole thing. But I did have some non-tweed base that I dyed at the same time, so they were the same color. And I ended up, I think it was just through this main colorwork section, because I could tell I wasn't going to have enough to finish it. So through this main section here, I alternated between the tweed and the non-tweed base, and like you can't notice it all. You can't notice it all. And I ended up with just the tiniest little bit of the tweed left over, so it worked out great. Yeah. Pattern was great. It's easy to follow. It's a really nice shape. It's kind of A-line shaped, and that looks really good on me. It's nice. It's got a lot of ease. I didn't make any modifications, really. I had to change the increases on the sleeve, which I talked about at length in my last podcast episode, because I had to reknit the sleeve like 3 times because I kept not measuring my gauge. And then when I finally did measure my gauge, I found out that I was way, way off on gauge. So what I ended up doing was, for the body, casting on a size extra, extra, extra large. And that gave me a sweater that was a size large. Because my gauge was off that much. 3 full sweater sizes, it was off. So, measure your gauge, people. Measure it. Yeah, so other than that, I didn't make any modifications. I just had to change the increase rate on the sleeves because I always have to do that. That's just one of those modifications I know I'm going to have to do for my body. Oh my God. Oh my God. So, you heard me yelling at the kitten earlier to stop playing with my sweater. That's a hole. He just chewed a hole in my sweater. Do you see that? What a little. Oh my God. Oh, well, I guess I have to fix this already. The amount of sweaters that I have to repair for my animals chewing holes in is unreal. That's an easy fix, though. It's in the stockinette. It's just a couple stitches that have come undone, so I can just go through and like duplicate stitch around it, and you won't notice. But oh Lord, I might need something stronger than coffee today. Yeah. The only other modifications I made, my row gauge in colorwork is really, really long. And I'm trying really hard to get better about that. I am getting better about that, but I just know that my row gauge is way off on colorwork. So what I did was I just eliminated a few rows on this section. It was supposed to be a few rows longer of the checkerboard, so I just eliminated a few rows. On the in-between sections, I went with the smallest size. So I skipped out on a few rows of just the main color in between everything. And then also on this checkerboard section up at the top, it was supposed to be a few rows longer as well. And I just made that section shorter. And it worked out great. Yeah, worked out great. The only other thing, I was looking at my pattern as I was going through the yoke and kind of looking at how much further I had to go, what I would have to do once I was done with the color work, which, you know, there's the little short row section at the back of the neck there. And then it went into, switch to your smaller needle and do 2x2 ribbing for the neckband and bind off. And then I was like, wait a minute, 2x2 ribbing? Didn't I do 1x1 ribbing? And then I looked at my sweater and I was like, I did 1x1 ribbing at the at the bottom of the body. And I was like, surely I must have done 1x1 for everything. No, I did 2x2 for the sleeves, and I was like, oh god, did I not do it for both sleeves? But I did. I did 2x2 ribbing on both of the sleeves. I got those right. But for some reason, I just ignored or missed that whole part of the pattern. I did 1x1 ribbing at the bottom of the body. And I said, whatever. That's fine. I'm not going to worry about it. I got both the sleeves right. I'll do the neckline right. And, honestly, I like the look of the 1x1 ribbing at the bottom of the body better anyhow. And it does, 1x1 ribbing is going to pull in a bit more than 2x2 ribbing does. So the fact that I have that at the bottom of the body, I'm totally fine with that. So it hugs in a little bit more. Yeah, so whatever. So I love this sweater. When this podcast is over, I'm going to have to repair it. Thanks, kitten. Yeah. So that's my after party. I'm very happy with that. It's just the perfect level of warmth for like cool summer evenings. I know, like chilly fall days, like it's going to be great. It's nice, light, loose fitting. It's knit up on size 4 needles in fingering. So it's not like a loose gauge, but you can't see through it, but it creates a nice light fabric. So yeah, I've already worn this, sitting outside after the sun goes down, and it's just perfect. So that's my first finished object. My second finished object was a half-finished object last time, but it is now done. These are my woolly lizard socks. The yarn is woolly lizard out of Cortez, Colorado. Colorway doesn't have a name. It was just a number on the band. And I talked about this a bit last time as well, that this is color pooling. This is not striping, which is really, really cool. But the thing I noticed after they were done and they were sitting next to each other, my gauge is totally different from one sock to the next. I actually noticed it because I was comparing like how much further I had to knit on the leg or the foot or something, and I was comparing both socks and I was like, why is this one so much shorter than the other one? And then I started looking at it and I was like, this color pooling looks way different. And like, it's the same ball of yarn. It's not like it's 2 balls of yarn. It's the same ball of yarn. Where this one ended, I started this one. But it looks like I was way more stressed out when I knit the second one. Because look how much tighter those stripes are. I was just knitting way tighter on the second sock. Yeah. And like, I look at it, and you can see if I line up the toes. Well, I don't know if you can see it. Anyway, this one's a little bit shorter. I think it'll be fine once I wear them. They'll stretch out a bit, whatever. But I thought that was pretty interesting that, sock number 1, and then a little further into 2020, and sock number 2 is a little bit more stressed out. Yeah, so these are done. I haven't worn them yet because it's hot and I don't want to wear socks in the summertime. I'm also doing Stash Dash, which I talked about a bit last time, I think, too. So, yeah, finished for Stash Dash, socks, sweater, doing good. Let's see. That's all my finished objects. The sweater and the socks. So now on to whips. The first whip I'm going to show you is kind of almost a finished object. I've been working on a little bit of crochet which I just taught myself how to crochet this year because I wanted to make a scrappy granny stripe blanket. So I learned how to do double crochet and do the, little granny stripes. And I've been working away on that and really enjoyed the crochet action. So I've been trying to learn some more crochet. So I started making coasters. I've made a couple little crochet coasters. And they're quite different, you'll notice. Again, with the gauge, these are actually about the same size, diameter-wise. But this one has an extra row in it. You can see that center. I was just much looser on the second one, much tighter on the first one. So this is a pattern. It's the Citrus Coaster. I don't recall who the designer is, but I'll put it down there. It's just a nice, easy little crochet pattern. You can, work this up in 20 minutes or something. I did find on these little spirally bits that on this one, this is following the pattern per pattern. And you can see it's just like it doesn't have enough space and it's kind of collapsing in on itself. So on the next one, I added in an extra single crochet in between each just to give it some more space. And now it lays out really flat and nice. Yeah, and the pattern is written for fingering weight yarn, and this is a worsted weight yarn. It is Knit Picks Color Mist, which is a cotton acrylic blend. I got it on some sale they had at some point whenever they first introduced it. You spent so much money and you could get a free skein of it or something. So I got this. I can't remember the colorway name either right now, off the top of my head. Sun Shower. It's Sun Shower. And it's this really pretty kind of yellow and cream tonal. So yeah, I mean, obviously my crochet is not the neatest. It has this really cool reverse single crochet edging, which when it's done evenly looks very nice and polished. When it's done by me, it looks a little funky, but that's okay. So I'm calling this a work in progress because I only made 2 and they don't really match. So I want to make a few more of these so I have a little set and then I'll call it a finished object. So that's my whip number 1. My whip number 2, I did an impulse cast on. Maybe because it's Stash Dash. And I was like, I could finish that before the date. I can do it. I cast on a shawl, which I don't need at all. This is a totally frivolous project. But it's fun. So, this is the tortoiseshell, which is also in Lane issue 6. I'm going to knit a lot of things out of Lane issue 6. Like, I swear, I love all of the patterns in that one. Like, just everything in it is my style. So the thing with this is the actual pattern calls for like 950 yards or something. I had 2 skeins of this, which was gifted to me by my friend Anne. Thank you, Anne. I've cast on. And she got it for me at the Boston Fiber Festival, I think, or something. It's from Great Bay Wool Works out of Durham, New Hampshire. It's their own wool, 200 yards, undyed, made from their little sheeps. Great Bay Wool Works at Liberty Hall Farm, excuse me. I might need glasses. Anyway, it's this really beautiful, rustic, 2-ply, natural color, natural sheepy wool. And it's got, I keep finding like little bits of hay in it. I love it when that happens. I'll knit it up and like find some hay in my shawl. But since it's these natural sheepy shades, you can see it better on the pearl bump side. You get these little, it's almost like little tweed nips, but it's just little bits of darker pieces of wool that kind of worked in. And I just think it's so, so pretty. And my friend bought it for me because she wanted me to dye it. I don't know if I'm going to dye it. It's just so pretty the way it is. It's just so pretty the way it is. Yeah, anyway, the pattern calls for about 950 yards. I have 2 of these at 200 yards apiece. That's 400 yards. That's a lot less than the pattern calls for. So what I did was I went up a needle size, because that's a shawl, so gauge doesn't really matter that much, but I figured that'll get me a little bit extra length. And I didn't do the stockinette for as long as the pattern called for. I knit in the stockinette until I was about, excuse me, 2/3 of the way through the first ball of yarn. And then I made sure I was at the right stitch count that the lace pattern would work when I started at that point. And I just went ahead and started in the lace because the lace will get me more shawl out of less yardage than the stockinette will, you know. So it's not going to be nearly as big as the pattern calls for. But, I mean, it's already like this. It's already, like, not terrible. And this is exactly one ball, one skein of yarn, 200 yards. I've gotten this much. And I'm about to join the second one. And I'll just go as far as I can and then bind it off and it'll be as big as it is. But it's got this really, really lovely textured lace pattern that I just love. I love texture so much. It's not a long repeat, but I am still having to look at the pattern every time I do it. After I get a little bit further into it, maybe I'll have it memorized. But yeah, right now I'm still having to refer to the pattern because the stitch repeat is, I think it's 12 stitches. Maybe it's longer than that. 18 stitches? 16 stitches? It's something like that. It's a pretty long repeat. So it's a bit to remember. But it's only like a 6-row repeat. So you go through it pretty quickly. But I am still referring to the pattern. And it's got these lovely details. Again, the texture here on the spine. Where, I mean, I don't want to give too much away, but it gives this lovely raised spine column here. And then that is repeated along the edges too. Where you get this one column of knit stitches that kind of just like pops out up on top of the rest of the pattern. I really love it on the spine. I think it just looks so nice and polished. Yeah, you can see some of the little darker flecks of wool in there. So yeah, I'm really enjoying knitting this. It's a really fun knit. I was trying to figure out what to do with this yarn, and I kind of wanted to knit the shawl out of it because I thought it would just be perfect with this textured lace in this really nice, lovely rustic wool. And I was right. It is really nice. But with limited yardage, I just didn't know what to do with it. And I started looking through all of my, finished knitted pieces. And I have so many neck things, scarves and shawls and cowls and things. And I was like, I do not need another shawl. I don't at all. But then I remembered what my mom always used to tell me. Because my parents would, after I was an adult, would give me money for my birthday. And my mom would always say, Liz, do not use this on groceries. Use this on something fun. I wasn't allowed to use it for any sort of like practical thing. It's like, you have to spend this on something fun for yourself that you wouldn't have done otherwise. It's like, okay, I will. So then I was thinking about this yarn and I was like, it was a gift. I should knit something fun. It doesn't matter if I don't need it. It's beautiful. And that's the whole point, that I would not have done this for myself if I hadn't been given the yarn. So it's a nice present from my friend to me and a nice present from me to me. So I finished a sweater. So I cast on a sweater. That's how it goes. And as soon as I finished my after party, I swatched for my next sweater, and I realized, oh dear, I'm on a bit of a color kick. It's not exactly the same, but it's close. It's in the same family for sure. Yeah. So that's my swatch. It's a little bit darker, a little bit more mauve-y. It's definitely going more into the purple range as I am knitting it up and seeing it, not just in the skein, you know. So this yarn I bought at Vogue Knitting Live in New York back in January, back when we could still travel places. And I bought it with the intention of knitting this sweater, and I'm finally getting around to doing it. So the yarn is Asylum Fibers in their merino fingering base. There's no nylon in it. It's 100% merino superwash, which I think is going to be great for the sweater. And the colorway is Earl Grey. And it's just this great tonal dusty pink. And I'm just into dusty pink right now, I guess. That's my thing. Sometimes all I'm knitting is orange. Right now, all I'm knitting is dusty pink. Go figure. So the pattern I'm knitting is the Flora Jumper by Melody Hoffman. And here's my swatch. And you can see it's got these cute little texture stitches, which she calls them flower stitches. I don't know if that's like an official term or anything. But the main body of the sweater is going to be mostly stockinette, and it just has these little flower stitches just kind of like all over it as this nice little texture pop, which I love texture. And yeah, when I saw the pattern, like I wanted to do it in a dusty pink. Like it just, I don't know, it just seems sweet, and I wanted a sweet color. And I think I found the perfect color for it. Yeah, so here's my swatch. I almost hit gauge. Almost. The pattern calls for 6.5 stitches per inch. I got 6.25 stitches per inch. And I liked the look of the fabric. Again, this is a nice, light, loose fingering and superwash sweater. So this is going to be a very lightweight sweater. So I was happy with it being a nice, loose fabric, and I wanted it to have a nice drape to it. I didn't really want to go down a needle size. I didn't want to go up a needle size. So I was looking at my options in the pattern for which size to knit. And I kind of fell in between a medium and a large with my gauge to knit up to my personal size. And generally speaking, like with the after party, my gauge usually knits up and I have to cast on a bigger size sweater, to a bigger size in the pattern to make a smaller sweater. So what does that mean? Am I a tight knitter or a loose knitter? I always get that inverse mixed up in my head. So that means I'm a tight knitter, I guess. Right? Does it? I don't know. Anyway, so I was trying to figure out which size to cast on, and then I was like, well, I'll just, cast on my own stitch count and like make it the right size for me. And according to that, it was going to be 10 stitches less than the large size and like 8 stitches more than the medium size. And then I was trying to figure out like how to get the spacing of the texture stitches with my stitch count. And then I was like, this is too much thinking. If I just cast on the large size, that's an extra 10 stitches. That's like 1.5 inches extra, 1.75 inches extra maybe, over the entire sweater, over the whole circumference of the sweater. Like it's going to be an extra 1.5 inches big. I'm like, it's supposed to be a big loose sweater anyway. It's supposed to be sweatshirty and comfy. So what if there's an extra inch, inch and a half? So I just cast on a large size. And I figured, you know, if my sock project was any indication, as I go, I might start knitting tighter. So we'll see. But I figure, you know, it's pretty close. It's pretty close. So this is what I have so far, which is just a mess of yarn ends. Oh my god. Yeah. I just joined the second ball. I'm alternating skeins. And I just joined the second ball. I've only done like one row with the second ball, and already I've had to untangle it like 5 times. It's really kind of frustrating. Okay, here we go. So this is what I have so far. I've cast on the bottom. It has a split hem, which I can show you over here on the side. So you cast on equal for the front and the back, you knit your ribbing, and then you join them in the round. So I've got my nice little split hem done there. And what I did at the top of the split hem, whenever I joined in the round, I did a little 1x1 cable cross right there, just to sort of keep this gap closed so it doesn't stretch out anymore. It just kind of like pulls everything in right there. So I just did a little 1x1 cable cross on both sides whenever I joined the split hem. And yeah, I'm like a few rows into the body of the sweater now, and I'm about to start my texture stitches, and off I go. I've never done helical knitting, but I'm thinking about it. Since I just joined my second ball of yarn now, I might give that a Google and see if that's something I want to do, or if I'm just gonna do what I always do and just carry them up the side, you know. Everything I've heard about it, it's amazing, and it's easy to do once you like wrap your head around it. So maybe I'll give that a shot. My other whip is spinning. I have been spinning. What is this on here? Oh, I think I got hay worked into my yarn. That's funny. Well, this is a blue-faced Leicester that I am spinning up, and I'm just going to do a 2-ply. I finished this bobbin. I'm about halfway through filling up the second bobbin, and then I'll ply them together. And that's going to count for Stash Dash. That's going to help a lot. Right now, I'm like 2.5K into a 10K goal. So yeah, I'm really hoping that this spin will take me up over the halfway mark, maybe. Because for Stash Dash, you get to count each ply, the full yardage of each ply, and then the yardage of the yarn that you ply together. So that'll help a lot. Yeah, I don't know if I really have anything to say about this. I mean, I'm just learning how to spin. I showed you guys my first like proper spin last time, which I also did just as a 2-ply. I did that on my middle gear, on my Ashford Kiwi 3. And this one I am doing on the highest gear, just to kind of see how that changes things. I am finding it a little bit harder to spin this BFL as thinly as I did the last one, which I did a Masham, which I think the Masham has a longer staple than the BFL. And maybe that's part of my problem, or maybe I'm just not drafting it as well on this. I don't know. I need to learn more about spinning. But you learn a lot by doing it, right? So yeah, that's all my finished objects. That's all my whips. Now I get to talk to you about natural dyeing. So natural dyeing. I have been getting back out of the dye pots, and I have been organizing things, and I did a shop update last Friday. Not like 2 days ago, but the Friday before that. And I added a bunch of little mini skeins. This is my half pint base that I knit my after party sweater out of. So it's great for color work, which is why I have little mini skeins for it. And they come in 25 gram minis, which is about 115 yards. And I've got, yeah, a nice variety of colors in those. And I also did some sage dyeing, which I have a ton of sage in my yard. My yard is sage. Like, people say that, out where I live, it's a sagebrush sea, and it is. It's just sagebrush, as far as the eye can see. So I got plenty of this stuff to dye with. I dyed up some sock yarn in sage, and this color I'm calling Fanghorn, after Fanghorn Forest from The Lord of the Rings, because it's this nice, deep, woodsy green. And I've also got this here in my Rancho space, which is a single ply worsted, 100% merino. It's super soft, like super soft. You just kind of want to like rub your face on it. This is also dyed in sage. Colorway for this is matcha. It looks like green tea to me. I have re-upped my sock yarn in the Ocean Rider colorway, which was sold out. Maybe because I kept some for myself. So I've been knitting I forgot about this whip. I always forget about my sock whips because they just like live in my purse. And I just take them with me wherever I go, which I don't go anywhere these days. So mostly almost all of this was knit while on Zoom calls. Anyway, this is my Ocean Rider colorway in my sock base. I actually have updated my sock base. This is my old sock base. The new sock base is 100% US grown and spun wool. So I am trying my hardest to keep my fiber shed as local as possible, which, the US is a really big country, so this still shipped to me over thousands of miles, but at least it didn't go around the world 3 times before it got here. So I'm really happy about that, to have a US grown and spun yarn in my line. Yeah, so this is the Ocean Rider colorway, and it's knitting up really, really nice. I'm enjoying this very much. I can show the ball too. See it all caked up. Yeah. And I am just knitting a giant tube out of this because I started knitting it and I got about this far and I was like, it's kind of boring just all blue like that. And then I had the great idea that I should dye a coordinating colorway for heels, toes, and cuffs. And then I was like, hey, I could sell that too. So I think this is what's going to happen is I'm going to come up with ideas for things that I want, and then hopefully you guys want them too. So I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to dye up a coordinating color for this in my colorway, which I don't have any of right now. I had sold it all at my local yarn shop previously, so I don't have any in my stock right now. In colorway Low Tide, which I think looks like the wet sand on the beach whenever you walk and, the tide is out and you have that big expanse of just kind of that damp sand. Anyway, I thought that would be beautiful with this and have a nice little oceanic theme. So I'm going to dye that up and I'll take this toe out, reknit it down, and then I'll cut my tube all apart and put in an afterthought heel and my cuffs too. So that's my plan with that. And definitely after I dye that up, I will have some sock sets in my shop of the Ocean Rider with Low Tide. I think that's everything I have right now. If you want to keep up on what I am working on knitting-wise, dye-wise, shop update-wise, cute animal-wise, go over and follow me on Instagram as Pyramid Dye Works. And yeah, it's been great sharing this time with you. I hope that I was able to keep you company for however long this has been, 45 minutes or an hour or something. And I hope you're all keeping well and keeping sane. I'm not doing great at that, honestly. It's been rough times. it's a hard time to be a human right now. So sending love to everybody out there. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next month. Bye. That is the pyramid of Pyramid Dye Works across the street from me, because it's Taos, so there's just stuff like that around. Come on, Kesa. Let's go. Let's go in the garden. In my little watering hole for birds and bugs, but the dogs drink it all. So this has transformed into the summer garden. All the spring stuff is out now pretty much. So I've got here in front, I've dug some beds for sunflowers here. They're starting to get a little taller. And here is the main garden. My sunflowers are starting to pop. And these were volunteer sunflowers. I didn't plant these. I just let them go because I knew they would do well. If they wanted to grow, they're welcome to do it. So down here I've got some calendula that's blooming in the corner. And if you look close, there's some dill coming up around in the calendula. And I just put out some more dill seed, and I've planted my cucumbers here next to my dill. I've got some lettuce down here that really enjoys the shade of the sunflowers. And walking in the garden. So I've got some more lettuce. It's a red leaf lettuce coming up in here, and it also gets the shade from the sunflowers for most of the day, which really helps. And then some new lettuces coming up. I just planted out my first peppers. Those are bell peppers, a couple of them here. Here, where's my finger? There. And there. And I've got a big strawberry plant here that has not put out hardly any fruit this year. The fruit that it did put out got eaten by bugs or beetles. But it is growing quickly in foliage, and it's sending out all these little shoots, trying to make new strawberries, which I am very happy with. So if it just gets bigger this year, that is fine by me. I've got a few little carrots here in the corner. This is an Icelandic poppy, I think, that I planted, and it's really pretty. It pops out these tiny little orange flowers, but they only last about a day and then they fall off. So I've got another one that's coming in there. But you can see these have already flowered and fallen. There's another strawberry shoot coming over here. I just pulled my peas up yesterday. They were on this trellis here. And in their place, I have planted some bean seeds down here, so they'll just take over this trellis. And I've got some leeks kind of scattered around the edges of the garden. Not all of them survived. Partially, yeah, I see a dead leek down there. Partially from me stepping on them, and partially from dogs stepping on them, and yeah, hopefully I'll get a few leeks out of it though. So I've got my kale that I planted out early in the spring is doing really well. I've got 3 kale plants, although they've been getting eaten by something. And when I was in the garden yesterday, and I pulled up some spinach that I had growing over here by the strawberries, and I found a couple like grub worms, the green grub worms that like to eat cucurbit, or not cucurbits, cole crops.
and I tossed them out of the garden, so hopefully it was just those guys and they won't come back. So yeah, excited to be harvesting some kale soon. And then mixed in there's another calendula that's about to flower, some chard, some marigolds coming up. And you can see here, I've been having a mole problem, which is unfortunate. Not really sure what to do about that one right now. But you can see here, I've got my squashes and zucchinis I've planted out. And they have been not doing great this year. I kept trying to harden them off, and they just did not like being outside ever. So now they're out in the garden, and they're doing okay. You know, they're getting some growth. They've got flowers coming on them. So hopefully they start taking off, and I'll have some squash soon. Yeah, so that's pretty much everything in the main garden. And I've put in 2 new beds this year, planning for a 3rd. And over here I've got tomatoes, mostly. This side, got some nice big sunflowers, and I did plant these. Cilantro, radishes. I don't know if you can see in there. A radish root poking up. So I've got a couple of them here ready to eat. Yep, some more little radish roots poking up. So I've got some tomatoes here. This is supposed to be a variety that does well in the desert. You can tell it's got these really thin, feathery leaves. That's supposed to be good for the arid climate. This poor one in the middle fell over in a storm or a dog running over it, I'm not sure. And it's got some fruit on it, you can see here. But it's just this tiny little thing, and it's, you know, got broken off leaves. I think I might just have to pull it, because it's putting out this fruit because it's doing its last desperate attempt at reproducing. So I might need to replace this one with a different tomato. But this tomato is doing great. This is one of the first ones I planted out. It's a beefsteak, and it is nice and big. Getting lots of foliage on there. We've got, down at the bottom you can see the first tomatoes coming in. Some more flowers starting up here at the top. So I'm excited about this one. It'll be a nice slicer tomato. And a big marigold coming up over there on the side. And then over here in my other bed, got another tomato, hollyhock, cucumber over there, and another tomato. And I've got some lettuce starting to come in that I planted seed out. See there. And then over here, I've got beans coming up. Hi, Keza. And this dog does not understand what the garden is, and he just walks through it all the time. And then down here, excuse you, it's right by your foot. Right by his foot, that's basil coming in. Let's not step on the basil, huh? Come on. Yeah, so that's my summer garden now that everything's been planted out. Really looking forward to getting some squash and zucchini and cucumbers, and I should be able to start eating lettuces soon. And it's really hot today. It's really hot this weekend, so it feels much better over here in the shade. And yeah, I'm gonna go inside now and try to stay cool. Dogs. You wanna say hi? Say hi to everybody? Oh yeah. Tough boys. Big tough boys. You giving kisses. Little love kisses. Love nibbles.